Hey, howdy, hey, welcome back to Trek on the Tube, and welcome back to another Star Trek season review. That's right, today we're talking about the most slept on of the new era of Star Trek shows, Star Trek Prodigy Season 1. Now, before we get into that, though, I just got a couple things I want to talk about, so let's address that. First of all, Happy New Year. I wish you all the best 2023 imaginable. 2023! We're living in the future, people.
What a time to be alive.
It's amazing. Only 40 years until first contact. Second, like, subscribe, share, and comment. Help me boost this channel. I mean, honestly, for a minute there, this was the fastest growing Star Trek YouTube channel. We were the fastest growing Star Trek YouTube community, so let's bring that back. Share it out to your friends. Tell them all that I exist. Tell them to come to this channel. You do your part and I'll do mine. I'll put out more videos. I'll find a way. Alright, enough. Let's get into this. Prodigy Season 1. Oh my goodness. For those of you that don't know, Star Trek Prodigy is an animated Star Trek show that takes place around 2383. That's only a few years after Lower Decks and the events of Nemesis, and some few years before the Romulan supernova and the events of Picard. The first season features the adventures of a makeshift crew comprised of children and teenagers from all across the galaxy, and promotes itself as a show directed at younger audiences just getting into Star Trek. Thing is, that description somehow must have scared people off, because once they heard animated and children's show, they just gave up. Well, I'm here to tell you that not only is this show fully enjoyable for adults on practically every level, but also it's probably one of the best examples of serialized storytelling I have ever seen in Star Trek. And for the first time in the history of the franchise, I actually think Prodigy has finally given me a definitive answer to the question, what Star Trek show is the best to start with? But more on that later. In the meantime, sit down, relax, and get ready for an intensely positive review. Spoilers ahead as usual, so do beware. Here we go. The first season of Prodigy is made up of 20 episodes, which is twice as much as what the rest of the streaming era shows have settled into. Yeah, the first few seasons of Discovery played around with 15s, 14s, 13s, but since then the show have standardized themselves into 10 episode seasons. I'm guessing Prodigy is the exception to this rule because its intent and objective is to be a kids show broadcasted on Nickelodeon, and that type of show usually gets bigger seasons. That being said, this 10 episode a season thing is more like a guideline than an actual rule. But the reason why I'm talking about this is not so much because this season was cut in half. No, that's not unheard of in today's streaming service landscape. Discovery's first season was cut in half also, but when it comes to Prodigy, I kind of felt like the show got a bit disrespected. And look, I'm probably talking out of my ass here because I have no clue as to why things happened the way they did. I have no proof or numbers to back up any kind of claim I make, and also, none of the show's creatives have really mentioned this at any point, but the point of these reviews is for me to share my thoughts and honest opinions, so I feel I must say this. The show didn't get a mid-season break. It got outright interrupted, and Viacom CBS made sure to release Picard Season 2, Strange New Worlds Season 1, and Lower Decks Season 3 before this first season of Prodigy could resume, and I cannot get over it. Sadly, in the world we live in today, animated shows don't get as much respect as live action ones. Their canonicity is always put into question. It's kind of aggravating. Kids shows also, generally speaking, don't get as much respect as quote-unquote adult ones, so Prodigy was already kind of fighting against the wave before its release. And considering just how good the second half of the season was, I honestly think it would have helped the show immensely to not cut it up. Let the 20 episodes come out in one go, let the hype build and the story progress week by week. Like I said, I don't know if this actually did hurt their numbers or not, but it definitely impacted the flow of the season. And look, in my opinion, if you're trying to sway people into accepting, so to speak, that your show is just as valid as any other, letting them enjoy the ride until the end feels like the smarter move. Am I complaining about nothingness though? Yes, probably, because now that the whole season is out and as time will progress, no one will ever have this issue ever again. Fans will be able to appreciate the full season in one go. Hooray, hurrah, but I needed to mention it nonetheless. Now, I haven't truly started my review of the season yet, but considering this video is almost just going to be a love letter to it, and I am genuinely trying to convince you lot to try the show out, I feel like they did the show dirty, and I didn't like that, and I just wanted to make it clear. Alright, okay, let's get into this for real. And for starters, let's go simple and talk about the animation, the style, the quality, its coherence with the format of the show, the style of the show, because this really is kind of the only place where I have minor complaints, so I kind of want to get that out of the way first. For context, however, the animation has pretty unanimously blown people away. I've even heard terms like cinema quality used very often, but I don't quite agree. What a surprise, right? I actually get the sentiment that the ambition behind the animation more often than not outweighed what was delivered, especially when it comes to characters and their movements. Okay, so the art style itself, I love. It found some sort of balance between the realism of live action and exaggerated features of animation, which enabled the show and the artist behind it to deliver absolutely breathtaking visuals in practically every episode. Space shots, planet shots, strange new worlds, the ships, the stations, hot damn, it was like watching high quality live action sets somehow enhanced with the pep and the pop of the animation sense of wonder. I mean, just look at this. Come on, it's stunning. It's a work of art. And notice how this looks very much painted. Like the show seems to utilize every trick in the book and blends them all together to create this visual language it made for itself. The only moment the illusion starts to fade a little is when the characters get involved. Their movements have this bizarre jank to them, almost as if they're poorly rigged video game characters from a cutscene. It's weird. And also the very out there nature of the aesthetics of our main characters sometimes contrasts or even clashes with the toned down, more grounded visuals of the other characters we meet throughout the seasons. So yeah, there's a slight disconnect between the characters in the foreground and the visuals in the background. There's also a slight disconnect between the heroes and the other people we meet along the way. And yeah, not all the movements flow as naturally as they could. Those are my complaints. Does this hinder the viewer's ability to watch the season though? No, not at all. Do these issues come from a technical side of things or rather a creative kind of decision? I don't know. I don't know. All I'll say is it's not cinema quality, I'm sorry, but it still is damn impressive. And just like with every animated show, its quirks are part of what makes it what it is. So yeah, when it comes to complaints, that's pretty much it. From now on, it's praise mania. The voice acting on this show is fantastic. Angus Imrie as Zero being the MVP for the season in my opinion. Man absolutely killed it. But so did everyone else. There's passion, there's flair, there's all sorts of emotion coming through these voices. The talent is undeniable. Of course, when you have legends like John Noble on the show, it does make sense that you're gonna get good performances, but you never know with younger or perhaps slightly inexperienced actors. Like sometimes it's a gamble, but nope. Not Prodigy. Regardless of their ages or years of experience, every single person nailed it. And let's not forget the return of Kate Mulgrew. She did exceptionally well, not only at recapturing the vibe of Janeway for the return of the character, but also somewhat managing to give Hollow Janeway a voice of her own, both figuratively and literally. A huge congratulations to all of them. I feel bad about going at the animation team now. Oh my god, congrats to all of the animation people as well. You did a fantastic job. And what do I know? What do I know? Animation isn't just drawing a guy with arms and then having his arms flail around. There's a lot more to it, you know? Which all brings us to the direction. The shot composition, the camera angles. Very often things seem immensely thought out, and that makes the emotional beats or the new visuals on screen pop up so much more than they would with some sort of flatter directing. The visual language of the show is top-notch. Like, you can really tell people are putting in time to figure out how to convey as much information as possible in as little time as possible. I mean, it's all part of having the constraints of a 20-minute show, I guess, but I wasn't expecting this level of investment, dare I say, for a show aimed at kids. Granted, the creatives knew adults would watch it too. I mean, clearly the story has been crafted in such a way that captures our imagination also, but putting so much effort into the scenes that were presented to us just adds something to the quality and longevity of the project. I'll tell you what, too, this show, its concept, its mission statement is to teach new fans, young fans about Star Trek, about Starfleet, the Federation, and its ideals, but by making the cinematic experience a little more refined and designed, not only teaches kids about the beauty that Star Trek can deliver, but also subconsciously teaches them about the beauty of cinematography. And then the music. Wow. The opening theme, I think, is one of the best the franchise has to offer. It's clearly Star Trek, it's atmospherically science fiction, it swells into a fanfare of hope and exploration. I love it. Also, the way every episode is scored with a delicate delivery of emotion that never overpowers the scene it accompanies. Oh my god. This franchise has some of the best music film and television has to offer, genuinely, and Prodigy is doing that legacy proud. Speaking of legacy, it's time to talk about what this show is about. A ragtag group of kids escaped from a slave planet aboard a lost experimental Starfleet vessel guided by a holographic version of the famed Captain Janeway, now made Admiral, trying to find a safe way to the Federation. What a brilliant premise. What a fantastic idea. It's a genius way to teach the audience and the characters about the long-lasting values brought forth by Star Trek. It's also a clever and sneaky way to integrate some of the franchise's legacy into the new adventure. Frankly, it's so good, I don't even know where to begin when talking about the storytelling. I'm overwhelmed. The show is heavily serialized. Each episode leads into the next chapter of the continuing adventure. Each episode delivers just a little more information about the multiple mysteries connecting the various plots together, but at the same time, every episode is its own story, its own little unique something, and it's all done really well. If you were to compare it, it would have to be to the later seasons of Deep Space Nine, for sure. Yes, Voyager and Enterprise have a kind of through line, but I wouldn't exactly call those shows all out serialized. Prodigy, on the other hand, you can't just randomly pop on one episode and expect to know what's going on without any additional context. But like I said, that doesn't impede the show's ability to make every bite-sized adventure unique. And so many of these episodes are memorable too. They don't all blend together into one great big pot of nothingness. You can distinctly remember each moment. I mean, for real, this might just be one of the best first seasons Star Trek has ever delivered, if not the best. I don't have an official opinion on that yet, so I guess don't quote me, but I can say this, and believe me when I say this, it is a very, very solid season 1. Every week we get a unique and different sci-fi concept like the ship-eating planet. We get returning legacy characters by means of the holodeck or an homage to the original series, and the importance of red shirts in the form of such a classic Star Trek style, the cultural contamination story. We get the Borg. Kids get introduced to the concepts of, asylum, the good of the many. There's time travel, but also time dilation and time displacement. Not only do we get to see our kid characters deal with things in their own way, but we also follow a real professional, so to speak, ship and crew and see how they deal with things, and that puts things into perspective. The mysteries of the Diviner, what happened to Chakotay, what the Protostar is, who Dal is, and where he comes from, they all work very well intertwined together, and mad props to the show for managing something so many other shows seem to have trouble with today: the suspense and the reveals. I don't feel like any of these mysteries took too long to unravel throughout the season, which is an issue that has been affecting Star Trek as of late. And I'll even go further than that. Yes, the pacing was very well handled, the reveals, the twists, the turns all came at the right moment, but more importantly, none of them devalue the rewatch potential the season has. A lot of modern shows put money on creating buzz in the moment, but if certain events are spoiled or revealed in advance, then it kind of takes away the fun. So what you need to do is make sure those big reveals also have some kind of meaningful depth to them, beyond the shock factor, and Prodigy did it. Prodigy pulled it off. I'm getting sidetracked though. Let's bring this back. The stories are great, their delivery and execution are just as good. Prodigy is crafted in such a way that it teaches important lessons to younger audiences. It preaches the values of Star Trek, but it also challenges them and puts them into perspective. Dal is enhanced. Starfleet and the Federation frown upon genetically augmented individuals, but Dal isn't responsible for who he is. He didn't augment himself. So there's definitely a conversation to be had about that topic and about that character. I could go on for ages about the pros and cons of having a rule like this, by the way, but that's what's so awesome. In true Star Trek fashion, the season opens up discussions about important social topics. Some so deep and complex, adults can get lost in them for hours. Others, a little simpler and better designed for younger minds to engage with. And all throughout this process, we get incredible character growth. I'm still not too too sold on Jankum, personally. I'm not a fan of Zero's new suit, let it be known. And I'm increasingly confused by Murph. No, for real though, the journey these kids go through, what we learn about their past, how we get invested in their futures, it's all very magical, very effective. And I think that for a first season, my level of attachment to this bunch just shows how successful the characters and their respective growths are. Oh, and let's not forget Hollow Janeway. Somehow this damn show managed to make her own person within the span of like the first 10 episodes. Incredible. At this point, I think we've said everything there is to say. I do want to give a shout out to the episode All the World's a Stage. I gave that episode a 10 out of 10 in the Starfleet Boy discussion. It wasn't out of hype, it wasn't hyperbolic. Every now and then there's an episode of Star Trek that comes along and works on every single level for me. The Devil in the Dark from the original series, the Pegasus from the Next Generation, Duet from Deep Space Nine. There are more, but those come to mind now. Star Trek is fascinating because it can be anything, and yet still be Star Trek in its soul. Over the years, we've seen horror stories, action stories, political intrigues, religious commentary, the list goes on. But now we're in an age where what many like to negatively call fan service has become yet another genre or type of story that can be told. And while fan service is very much a thing in most long-lasting franchises today, sometimes what you're getting is not that. Sometimes what you're getting is an expansion, a further exploration of the lore previously established. And sometimes, like with All the World's a Stage, you get an inexplicably perfect balance between the legacy of what once was with the exploration of what's to come. I cannot overstate this enough. It's probably the best episode of Star Trek to come out of this modern era. I love it so much. I was gonna stop there about this episode, but I feel like I need to add just a little something else. The strength of the episode lies in that it doesn't rely on like the original series and the tropes or the legacy, because it's not leaning on it. It's just having fun with what exists already and kind of like applying it to its own idea. It's so good. Anyway, Daughter on the Tube, I tried to make her watch this. She's a bit too young. I mean, every child is different, of course, but I definitely recommend waiting to hit around 6 or 7 years old before showing them this. She was only 4 by the end of the run, 3 when it began. So sadly, I can't really comment on her overall thoughts like I wanted to do originally. I can say she likes the music and title sequence immensely, but that's about it. So yeah, Prodigy Season 1. It starts off with a double episode that doesn't really do justice to what's to come. It's a bit clunky, it's a bit Star Wars, it's a bit generic, but it sets the stage for what then becomes a brilliant, truly brilliant experience that serves as an introduction to the franchise as well as a sequel to Voyager. And so now we circle back to the comment I made in the beginning. I now have a definitive answer to the question, which Star Trek should I start with? This. 100%. This. If you're new to Star Trek, start with Prodigy. Alright, great show. I hope you enjoyed this video. A huge thanks to the channel patrons for keeping this YouTube channel afloat on the tumultuous sea that is YouTube. Please do consider becoming a patron yourself. If not, if you don't want to, then you can always hit that thanks button, or you can go donate on Ko-fi. Like, subscribe, comment, share this video around. Like I said, we used to be the fastest growing Star Trek community on YouTube. I'm sure we can bring that back. This is the year we get the channel growing again. Alright, thank you for watching. Great show, people. Congratulations, all the Star Trek Prodigy crew, and live long and prosper.